just sharply timed. And then, once you're gone, the real effect begins. People don't replay what you said. They obsess over why you left when you did. Suddenly, your absence becomes the most memorable part of your presence. You're no longer just a participant. You become a symbol, figure recalled in silence, replayed in private thoughts. Because Machiavelli didn't just teach tactics. He taught atmosphere. Your goal isn't to win admiration with loud gestures. It's to disrupt their assumptions, to make them question what they thought they knew. You don't aim to be liked. You aim to be remembered. Dan never fully understood, but presence alone is defensive. It protects, but doesn't advance. Power truly begins when it's used. And Machiavelli didn't just want to be respected. He wanted to move through the world like a weapon, a loaded force, one that didn't always fire, but always demanded attention. This is the point where most people stop. They gain composure, self-control. They believe that's mastery, but they're only halfway there. Machiavelli knew restraint is just the first act. The second, precision. So now you don't just walk into a room with calm authority. Don't. Just silence the noise. You begin to destabilize the room without saying a word, without shifting your posture. Without lifting a hand, use silence not as a shield, but as a trap. There's a silence that protects, and there's a silence that pulls people into mistakes. The first shields you, second exposes them. In public, your quiet must be more than defense. It should be a calculated trap. When someone attempts to provoke you, hoping to draw a reaction, don't reward them with your words. Give them a pause, a long one. Silence deep enough that it begins to echo. Don't respond, just stare. Keep your body still. Let your presence do what your voice doesn't. When you give them nothing, no reaction, no expression, they begin to squirm. They fill the gap with noise, trying to reclaim control. They overtalk, overjustify, overreach. And in that moment, as the noise spills out from them, the room begins to shift. The crowd watches them unravel. You stay perfectly still. That contrast is the stage. Stillness. It becomes louder than anything they say. Machiavelli understood this. Silence isn't just the absence of speech, it's a mirror. Let it reflect who they really are. Test. The foolish panic in quiet. The powerful, they use it as a weapon. Let it devour the unprepared. Redirect questions into questions. When people try to corner you publicly, to pin down your motives, or predict your next move, don't answer directly. Never give a full picture. Instead, turn their curiosity back on them. If they ask, why did you do that? You answer with, why does that interest you? If they press with, what's next for you? Respond with calm. Wouldn't it be smarter if I didn't say? Now the dynamic flips. They're leading. Now they're explaining. And in doing so, you've shifted control not just of the conversation, but of perception. They stop listening for facts and begin watching for signals. You've redirected their attention from your words to your intentions. You've made them uncertain. Uncertainty is leverage. Use micro-movements to create psychological discomfort. In public spaces, most rely on noise, big gestures, loud affirmations, constant performance. But Machiavellian presence works in the opposite direction. It uses restraint, speaks through subtleties, a glance that lingers 1 second too long, slow smirk while someone tries to prove themselves. A silent, deliberate sip from your glass after someone finishes their loud speech. These aren't random habits, they're chosen responses. They say, I've already assessed this moment. I'm not reacting because I don't need to. That's dominance without volume. Threat without words. These microsignals create confusion that others can't explain, and that confusion becomes your advantage. When they don't understand you, they adjust themselves. They try harder. They stumble. Your silence becomes the center of gravity. Publicly praise the powerful with precision. Never criticize someone above you in public. Know this already. But Machiavelli took it further. He didn't just avoid criticism. He weaponized praise. Strategically, he would choose a moment. Identify someone influential, then offer a short, sharp, and undeniable truth about their strength. Not flattery, not performance. Something that landed. His timing is always perfect. She doesn't need to say much. She can feel her presence. You always know he's entered the room, even before you see him. Why? Because the powerful remember who protects their image. When others stay silent or compete, you're the one reinforcing their myth. And in return, they may offer you protection, association, or subtle endorsement. One precise compliment can shield you longer than 1,000 explanations. And in doing this, you become a ghost ally. Someone who gains quiet cover without ever displaying submission. You're now shielded by their authority while still holding your own weapon quietly in hand, never raised, but always ready. That's the art. You move through the room under radar, yet with precision. You're aligned, but not owned. It's protected, yet untouchable. Never reveal who you're truly watching. In public, let your attention seem relaxed, effortless. Nod casually. Smile when appropriate, but behind your eyes, stay sharp. Always scanning, always observing. Who's working too hard to impress? Who's laughing too loudly at nothing? Who keeps glancing at you when they think you're not looking? Who mirrors your posture, your timing, your rhythm, while pretending you don't exist? Machiavelli would scan the room without ever letting the room know it was being scanned. That's the edge. Your power isn't only in capturing attention, but in harvesting data invisibly. Because when people know they're being watched, they perform. But when they think they're alone, they reveal themselves. The one who watches everyone is dangerous. The one who watches silently is unstoppable. And once you detect the patterns, once you see who's envious, who's insecure, who's pretending, you hold the advantage. Not for the moment, but for later. You don't act impulsively. You wait, you observe, you file it away. Then, when it matters most, when timing amplifies effect, you act. That's where true power lies. In patience layered with precision. Respond. To disrespect with calculated absence, nothing disrupts a public dynamic more than sudden, intentional silence. When someone cuts you off mid-thought, subtly mocks you, or tries to dismiss your presence, don't defend yourself. Don't confront them. Simply vanish. Withdraw your attention, your energy, your validation. Pivot the conversation. Speak to someone else. Smile. Even just nod at them. Let them feel what it's like to be invisible to you. And they will. Oh, they will. The crowd will pick up on the tension. And the one who crossed you, they'll begin to perform harder, laugh louder, search for attention. And in doing so, they reveal their desperation, their imbalance, their cracks. You don't punish them. You vanish. And now it's not your words that correct them, it's their own insecurity. You become the architect of their unraveling. Drop. Timed phrases that people replay later. You don't need volume. You don't need a speech. What you need is one sentence, clean, sharp, understated, that stays with people long after you've exited the room. The kind of line they replay in their head when they're alone, when their confidence fades, when their certainty wavers. Machiavelli used to say, everyone sees what you appear to be. You experience what you really are. And that's the point. Your goal is to echo this through your own voice. Sentences like, you'll understand later, or sometimes silence is louder than shouting, delivered calmly in passing. As if you didn't even realize the weight of what you were just said, but they do. They carry it. It lives in their head like an unsolved riddle. They can't explain why, but they keep thinking about it. That's psychological follow-through. That's presence beyond presence. Your voice becomes a ritual they return to meaning let public spaces turn you into a living riddle. Where others enter a room desperate to be seen, you walk in as a contradiction. You have warmth in your eyes, but your tone stays cold. Your body remains still, but the energy around you feels charged. You engage momentarily, then retreat. You're always polite, but never predictable. This dissonance forces attention. Why? Because the mind can't settle. People can't relax around ambiguity. They can't categorize you, and so they keep watching. In that space of confusion, of uncertain perception, you become unforgettable. You're not just a person. You're a force they're trying to label but can't. That's what Machiavelli would construct. It's not a man who is merely powerful, but one who distorts clarity itself. One whose presence leaves people wondering if they saw a shadow or a signal. There are rules you're taught, Then there are rules Machiavelli would never say out loud. The ones that quietly divide the powerful from the powerless, the dominant from the exposed. Most people assume power is something loud, something you put on display. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. True power is not in what you reveal, but in what you refuse to show us, especially when the world is watching. Because in public, you're not only observed by people, you're observed by opportunity, by your own reputation, and by those who wait silently for the moment you falter. You don't climb by dazzling others in public. You rise by being flawless, impeccable under pressure, unreadable under scrutiny. And there are 9 behaviors subtle, emotional, deeply human that will quietly erode your presence, your aura, your command of the room, if you dare reveal them. Never complain in public. You might think it helps you seem down to earth, more human, more relatable. But to those who understand power, it has the opposite effect. Machiavelli knew. When you complain in public, you expose to fatal weaknesses, lack of control, and the need for sympathy. Both are dangerous. Both are repellent to power. Why? Because power gravitates toward those who endure discomfort without announcing it. The moment you express frustration openly, you stop being a threat or a mystery. You become someone who needs something, and the world begins to treat you like you do. Stay silent. Bear it quietly. Let them wonder how you manage to stay composed. Let them question how you never flinch, even when chaos surrounds you. Never. Expose your insecurity. Maybe in a moment of deep trust, in private too, might allow a sliver of vulnerability, but never in the open. Because once you admit something, even if it's not true, people start to believe it. Say I'm not good at this enough times, and soon others will stop trusting you with it. Say I struggle with confidence, and expectations around you will shrink permanently. Machiavelli understood this cruel truth. Perception shapes reality, and nothing kills authority faster than offering your weakness willingly. Even when doubt gnaws at you, hold your frame. Let your unease live behind the armor of poise and posture. That's what unsettles them, not what you say, but what you refuse to expose. Never boast about your plans. You've seen them, those loud voices in public, declaring their next big idea, their grand ambition. Machiavelli would smile at such displays, knowing they'd already lost the advantage. When you talk about your goals too soon, 2 things happen. First, people feel no urgency to help you. You seem to be doing just fine without them. And second, you've now given others a blueprint to block you before you've even begun. Speak nothing. Let your actions unfold quietly. Let your success arrive unannounced, undeniable. And when the world asks, how did you do it? Smile and say little. Offer nothing, because the most potent power is the one that builds in silence, and then explodes into visibility, too late to be stopped. Never take public sides in petty disputes. You may believe defending someone makes you loyal. Maybe it does, in private, but in public, makes you obvious, predictable, easy to use. Machiavelli cautioned rulers again and again, never involve yourself in the quarrels of others unless you stand to gain from the outcome. When you jump into a dispute, you gain an enemy without necessity. You create alliances based on emotion, not strategy. And most dangerously, you reveal your values before you have power to enforce them. Let others expose themselves. Let them clash and struggle. Let them make noise while you stay quiet. You observe. You remember. You position. Because in the art of power, movement without purpose is vulnerability. Public neutrality is not cowardice, it's camouflage. It is the shield of those who plan to outlast, outmaneuver, and ultimately outpower. Silence in chaos is not weakness, it's preparation. It's the preservation of future dominance. Never show hunger for attention. There is no greater stench in public than desperation, whether it's laughter you provoke, validation you beg for, or applause you subtly chase once people sense you. Need it. They own you. You're no longer a mystery. You're a merchant of approval. And that, to Machiavelli, was the beginning of the end. The more you need others, especially emotionally, the less they value you. And that value drop is swift, irreversible. Walk into a room and chase their favor, you become forgettable. But enter calm, composed, indifferent to their opinion. You become an enigma, presence. They won't be able to figure you out, and what they can't define, they can't dismiss. Influence doesn't come from needing the room. It comes from not needing it at all. So let them lean in. Let them seek you. Want power and be the one? Who draws the room in without asking for it? Let them come to you. Never break under pressure even slightly. Those public moments of tension, disagreement, or challenge, they're not random. They're tests. And most people fail not in obvious explosions, but in the small, almost invisible leaks. A voice that tightens, expression that twitches, a shift in stance. The room notices. They always do, sometimes consciously, sometimes not. And in that brief flicker, your myth fractures, that aura you built. It starts to crumble. Machiavelli would never show pressure. He absorbed it like armor-catching arrows, boiling on the inside yet motionless on the outside. Not robotic, not cold, just controlled. Grace under fire. It's in that control becomes legend. Because once people see you, don't flinch. You become more than just a presence. You become a landmark. Someone others adjust around. Someone who's emotional. Stillness sets the tone. Never publicly over-explain yourself. This is the trap of the uncertain. The insecure are the ones who feel the need to justify every word, every choice. You say something bold, the reaction comes, you feel heat. And instead of standing firm, you spiral. You defend. You soften. You begin to explain. And in that moment, you surrender the frame. The power shifts. You no longer own the message. Crowd does. You're now existing on their terms, playing their game. But Machiavelli, he never explained. He redirected. If someone demanded clarity, he'd say, "Perhaps you misunderstood me." Or better yet, "Perhaps you understood me perfectly." Either way, he maintained control, not just of the words, but of the interpretation. He let ambiguity do the heavy lifting, so next time you feel the urge to explain, don't let silence create uncertainty. Let them wonder. Let their imagination turn against them. Never reveal bitterness toward rejection. Someone ignores you, excludes you, chooses someone else. The sting hits. That flicker of pain rises. And maybe, just maybe, you want to show it. But resist, because public bitterness is a form of self-sabotage. It announces to the world, "I noticed. I cared, and now I'm weakened by it." And Machiavelli would call that emotional suicide. When you're overlooked, dismissed, or deliberately cut out of something, don't react with visible emotion. Don't flinch, don't force a smile, and above all, don't retaliate with sarcasm or performative indifference. Instead, respond with real detachment, controlled stillness. Make it seem as though they've done you a favor, that your attention was a limited resource, and they've simply removed themselves from access to it, because more often than not, they expected you to chase them. They were counting on your reaction. And when you don't give them one, you simply remain unbothered. It flips the script. Suddenly, they're the ones chasing clarity. They begin questioning their own worth. Never publicly criticize someone more powerful than you. Not because they're right or because they deserve protection, but because you gain nothing from the exposure, no matter how justified your criticism may be. Calling out someone with greater influence only produces two results. People perceive you as bitter or jealous, and those in power now identify you as a threat. And threats, as history proves, are always neutralized. Machiavelli would absolutely identify their weakness, but he would never attack them openly or first. He'd wait, patiently. He'd let their confidence build, let their defenses drop. Sometimes he'd even lift them up publicly right before orchestrating their downfall. If criticism is truly necessary, it must be delivered with surgical precision. Do it indirectly. Do it strategically. Better yet, do it through another voice. Because power isn't just about speaking the truth. It's about knowing when the truth serves a purpose. And when it doesn't, silence serves better. Power isn't only preserved by what you avoid. It is also constructed quietly by what you project with control and intent. Because when you strip away the weak behaviors that Machiavelli would despise, complaining, oversharing, reacting emotionally, you leave a space. And nature and human psychology abhor a vacuum.
Ow.
The world will project meaning onto you. The only question is, do you shape it or let them decide? So the game shifts. It's no longer just about survival. It becomes about design, not with aggression, not with ego, but with stillness, with strategic positioning, with carefully chosen signals. You've already learned what must be subtracted. Now comes the art of replacement. Replace complaints with unreadable endurance. Complaints broadcast a need. They expose discomfort. But silent endurance? That creates an entirely different effect. It breeds curiosity, certainty, a little fear. When others suffer, they speak. When you suffer and say nothing, people wonder. Why isn't he reacting? How much can he really take? What is he planning behind that calm face? Machiavelli would never show pain. He'd transform it into discipline, into focus. Because in public, silence under pressure is more than admirable. Unnerving. Why? Because people fear what they can't measure. If you're under stress but remain composed, they start to question everything. Is it not affecting him? Or is he simply stronger than we thought? You don't need to smile. You don't need to fake joy. You only need to radiate emotional indifference, the kind that forces people to compare their own fragility against your. Composure, your pain becomes a weapon, but only if no one can see it clearly. Keep it masked. Keep it contained. Replace insecurity with strategic ambiguity. Insecurity, when visible, is a signal, a beacon of uncertainty. It invites correction. It triggers judgment, but ambiguity, it's something entirely different. It reflects. It disorients. It creates space for imagination. The insecure explain themselves endlessly. They overtalk. They seek approval, but Machiavellian ambiguity leaves others unsure deliberately. You hold the frame by not declaring your state of mind. You don't say, I don't know what I'm doing. You say, I have something in mind, and say nothing else. No elaboration, no clarification. You hold the line between confidence and mystery. You don't admit confusion. You redirect. You ask questions that shift attention. You leave space that others feel the urge to fill. You're not pretending to know everything. You're simply refusing to make your knowledge measurable. That difference creates leverage. Because when people begin to sense that you might be playing a longer or more complex game, they hesitate. They second guess. And the moment they start interpreting your ambiguity, you're already ahead. This is how quiet control works. It doesn't. Need to be understood only needs to be felt. Replace boasting with subtle power signals. Loud declarations dilute real power. Every time you announce what you're doing or what you've accomplished, you weaken the very impact you're trying to create. True influence reveals itself in glimpses, accidents, implications. The powerful never recite. Resumes, they allow their presence to tell the story. You're not a leader because you say you are, or you are. Because in uncertain moments, people instinctively look to you. You don't need to proclaim you're building something. People notice that your time is fiercely guarded. You don't need to shout your victory. They see your stillness while others celebrate noise. That's power. Not in display, but in delay. Not in exposure, but in control. When you master this, even your absence becomes presence. Even your silence becomes a signal of motion. A symbol that something is happening whether they can see it or not. Replace public loyalty gestures with quiet allegiance. When chaos breaks out, when sides are chosen loudly and alliances are worn like uniforms, resist the pull to join the noise. You stay silent not because you don't care, but because you understand that approval fades and influence lasts. The strongest loyalty, the kind no one sees, is a quiet support, the unseen hand, the gesture made not for applause but for impact. Machiavelli always served alliances behind closed doors. He knew the price of public performance. You can stand by someone, but when you do it in front of an audience, it becomes theater. and theater demands too much for what it offers. But when you protect someone in secret, they feel it more deeply. When you maintain neutrality in public, you become untouchable. You're above the fray. That's the move. Support privately, rule publicly by revealing nothing. Replace attention-seeking with controlled withdrawal. The one who speaks the loudest usually has the least to offer. So instead of trying to dominate the room, make your power felt through absence, not presence. Let others fill the air. Then enter quietly but with intention. Don't speak unless the silence needs you. Don't laugh unless it breaks tension with perfect timing. Don't stand in the center, stand just beyond it. That's where gravity lives, because people are drawn to what they don't fully understand. In a room full of performers, the one who holds himself apart becomes the anchor. He becomes the point others subconsciously orbit. Machiavelli understood. A ruler doesn't win with volume. He wins by becoming the one everyone adjusts around, the fixed star in a moving sky. Replace breakdown with pre-planned stills. When you're challenged, verbally attacked, tested, or provoked, your advantage lies not in reaction, but in restraint. Don't defend, don't attack, don't rush to dominate the moment. Instead, build what Machiavelli would call preset postures. Visual symbols of inner control. The pause before a response, the emotionless stare, the slow lean back after interruption, the silence that rejects panic. These are not passive, they're strategic. They're physical decisions that break the tempo of the aggressive. Because when someone expects an emotional opponent and is met with nothing, no flinch, no spark, no surrender, they collapse into their own confusion. They lose rhythm. And suddenly, you own the frame not by overpowering it, but by refusing to play. Your calm becomes provocative. Your silence, once overlooked, now becomes a mirror. It reflects their own instability, their own unraveling. You don't need to say much. Your stillness alone begins to agitate. And as they react, stumble, and overreach, you remain poised. Soon, it looks like you orchestrated the entire unraveling. Every twitch they show confirms your control. It's not arrogance, it's strategy. It's the discipline of someone who lets others self-destruct in slow motion. Replace over-explanation with micro-mystery. In a world addicted to over-communication, restraint becomes rare and powerful. Brett, the more you speak, the more data people have to reduce you, to box you in. But when you hold back, when you choose words with surgical precision, you force others to wonder. And when they wonder, they project. Their imagination fills the silence you leave behind. And when people project onto you, you gain something rare. Influence over their thoughts without ever demanding it. You don't explain your motives, you shift the narrative. Instead of detailing your reasoning, you simply say, let's see how it plays out. Instead of justifying your behavior, you offer it made sense to me. These are not evasions. They are invitations to interpretation and the beauty of interpretation. People often create meanings far greater than your original intent. They elevate your choices into myths. That's not manipulation. It's a psychological warfare, find. Because Machiavelli never wanted to be understood. He wanted to be interpreted. And interpretations, more often than not, outlive facts. Replace bitterness with quiet exit. When you're dismissed or rejected in public, your silence is your strength. You don't argue. You don't plead. You don't try to win anyone back. You simply disappear completely, without residue. It's not out of spite, but out of strategic detachment. Because the person who leaves without noise, without bitterness, leaves a vacuum behind. That vacuum, it unsettles people. The room has to ask itself, did he see something we didn't? Was this a calculated withdrawal? Why does it feel like something valuable just left? Your absence speaks louder than 1,000 protests. And the best part, if you decide to return, your reappearance feels like an event. Scarcity breeds significance. Always replace criticism with delayed precision. Never strike. While you're emotional, never react in the heat of insult or offense. That's noise. That's predictable. Instead, become a quiet observer. Let time unfold your enemy's patterns. Let their weakness expose itself over weeks, months, even years. Then one day when no one sees it coming, you strike. Not with rage, but with surgical insight. A single sentence. A precise truth. So specific that it cuts deeper than any argument ever could. It feels accidental to them, but to you, it was calculated. That's the difference between emotional retaliation and strategic vengeance. Machiavelli never shouted, "That man is weak." He simply waited for the man to prove it himself, and whispered the right words to the right ears after the collapse had begun. This is how power speaks. Not loudly, not immediately, but with terrifying patience. Because control without perception is just invisible effort. The world only respects control when they feel its consequences, and Machiavelli. He never moved in. Silence unless that silence made others paranoid, because silence without tension is forgettable. But silence with meaning? That's the next level. This is the next phase, not just managing perception while you're present, but shaping the image. People build of you when you're not in the room. Because in public, you're not just showing up, you're planting a legend. A version of you that grows in whispers, that spreads through secondhand stories. That legend isn't built on declarations. It's crafted by suggestion, by precision. By intentional gaps that beg to be filled. Machiavelli didn't want to be understood, he wanted to be followed. He wanted to be feared not for what he said, but for what others imagined. That's your goal now. Most people talk to fill silence. You, on the other hand, let silence do the talking. The Machiavellian speaks to create it. It's not just to inform, but to shape perception, steer attention, and silently assert control. Perception isn't molded by what you say directly. It's shaped more powerfully by what you choose not to say. The spaces between your words become fertile ground for projection. When you speak slowly, deliberate calm when you allow silence. To stretch before an answer when you leave a sentence half hanging in the air, unfinished. People begin to lean in. They unconsciously attribute depth where there is pause. They start assuming intelligence behind stillness, authority behind quiet. And in those silent intervals, they begin to fill in the blanks with their own interpretations. This is your weapon. Say less. Mean more. Let every pause act like invisible punctuation holding weight. Building suspense. Let people finish your sentences in their minds. Let them think they know where you're going and then pull back. You're no longer just a speaker delivering thoughts. You're a presence they must interpret, a code they feel compelled to solve. That mystery becomes your leverage. Control eye contact like a weapon. There are only two ways to disarm someone in public without ever saying a word or lifting a hand. 1. You hold their gaze so calmly, so steadily, that they crack under the weight of it. 2. You refuse to acknowledge their presence entirely. Both destroy, but in different ways. Machiavelli understood this instinctively, long before modern psychology caught up. Your gaze isn't merely about confidence. It's about hierarchy, power, and control. When someone tries to provoke, mock, or bait you into reaction, hold their eyes. Still, unblinking, unbothered. Never overfocus, never dart away. Just wait, because they will shift first in the moment they do. The entire room silently recalibrates. Everyone sees who truly held the ground, and if someone beneath your level socially, professionally tries to attack or antagonize you, don't react. Don't acknowledge, don't smirk. Ignore them completely, not from ego, but from strategic detachment. Silence, the visual disregard, turns them into nothing. The crowd feels it. Without a single word spoken, your social rank has been established and there's a race. Respond to provocation with calm redirection. The most dominant person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one who never even appears to be participating in the noise. When someone throws sarcasm, criticism, or passive jabs your way in public, don't defend, don't escalate, pivot. Offer a faint, unreadable smile. Change the topic effortlessly like a man who doesn't even register the attempt. And in doing so, you expose their need for attention. The contrast makes them look juvenile, and the people watching, they notice. They feel your restraint. They recognize that you didn't need to win the moment, because the moment was never yours to fight. 4. You simply moved past a tand. That is power. That's what real presence feels like. And once others sense that you can't be baited, they stop trying. They adjust themselves to your rhythm. Now you're not just shaping perception. Influencing the emotional climate of every room you enter, build a myth around your absence. Some of your most powerful moments won't happen while you're in the spotlight, but when you're not present at all. When you've cultivated your image carefully enough, your reputation walks into the room before you do. When you leave a space, you don't announce it. You don't explain. You exit quietly. But the way you move, the calm you carry, the mystery you leave behind, it creates a ripple. And in that ripple, curiosity blooms. They start whispering, "What's he up to now? Did you see how calm he was? I heard he's planning something big." Without even trying, you've installed a myth, a quiet, powerful signal that travels beyond your voice, beyond your presence. A myth that doesn't shout, it resonates. A low-frequency narrative that carries your name through rooms you never stepped into. To build this, be just slightly less accessible than expected. Show up later than people thought you would. Step away before they're ready to let go. Speak less than they hoped, but enough to stir interest. The key isn't to be mysterious for the sake of it's to control perception with intentional scarcity. When you're slightly out of reach, your value rises automatically. Familiarity breeds comfort. Distance creates reverence. Leave events early, not to offend, but to leave an impression. Exit before the energy fades. Enter moments late, never rushed, always composed. And when you speak, offer just enough to suggest there's more, something deeper just beneath the surface. Don't give them the full painting. Offer only the outlines and let their imagination color it in. It's how you create an image that lingers. And when your name surfaces in conversation, let there always be a pause, a hesitation, a flicker of uncertainty. "I've heard of him, but what's he really about?" That's not confusion, that's curiosity. That's respect with a question mark. And that's legend building. Legends don't scream for attention. They leave behind echoes that travel without effort. Let other people defend you. They'll scramble to clear their name when questioned. Yeah. Average person panics. They explain, clarify, protest. But Machiavelli never would. Why? Because the moment you rush to your own defense, you subtly validate the attack. You admit it was worth reacting to. Instead, let your silence become the test of others' loyalty. Machiavelli understood this. He built quiet alliances behind closed doors. He didn't need to argue when his name was questioned because someone else always rose to his defense, not because he asked them to, but because he had installed enough loyalty, enough quiet fear, that no room could fully turn against him. You must build the same effect. Speak in such a way that people enjoy quoting you. Craft your words carefully, not to impress, but to stick. Let your silence earn more respect than their noise. Move in such a controlled way that people feel smarter just standing near you, let alone defending your position. And when someone publicly questions you, don't flinch. Don't explain. Say only they're entitled to their view. Then watch the room respond on your behalf, because that's how rulers operate. They don't fight every rumor. They don't chase narratives. Let the myth they've built quietly adjust the story. The truth, if needed, will correct itself in whispers. Master the exit moment. Machiavelli believed timing was the hidden lever behind power. You can say everything right, but if you exit wrong, you lose your momentum. A perfect message delivered at the wrong moment is still a failure. Great performance ruined by lingering too long is soon forgotten. So always leave with mystery intact. Exit while the interest is still climbing, not after it's peaked. Don't wait until you're being ignored. Leave while they still want more. Step away mid-conversation. Offer a reason that makes sense, but invite speculation. "I've got to handle something. Let's continue this another time." That's a good place to pause for now. Not arrogant, not dismissive,